it's the Joker archetype. It's like I'm gonna play around the edges and see kind of what happens.
I look at conversation as just like organized chaos, and I don't know where it's gonna go.
Well, do you think numbers exist beyond experience?
Meaning, like, without a mind, does a number exist?
Yeah.
That's where I struggle. How could it? How could it exist without a mind to have made it? Yeah, I think we're at the limit, dude. I don't know how to answer this. I don't know. I don't know. How's it going?
Going good. How about you?
Doing good, man. Just chilling.
That's good. Any courses you've been taking recently and enjoying?
Yeah, I didn't do, but I listened to Evolution one and the Sex one, the birth control pill, and then I've listened to a couple minutes or hours on the philosophy of religion. What about you?
Oh, I've done a couple hours on the philosophy of religion. I started the um, birth control pill one because of my interest in evolutionary biology. How was that one? I was curious about how that one was because I've done a little bit and I liked it. It was kind of yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was eye opening on a lot of things I didn't know about as far as like female anatomy and periods and things like that. And it had good balance. It had some takes where I was kind of like, eh, and then it had some takes where I was like, oh.
What did it talk much about evolutionary biology?
I think in the first couple of lectures, she covers that pretty well. And then towards the end, it starts to get more into the meta stuff and more into society. So I've kind of noticed the pattern with a lot of the lectures is they kind of start like at the core, the individual level, and then it broadens a little bit more to maybe like a group, and then it broadens at the very end to a societal application. I think that's what
What do,
she does.
what do you find most interesting about lectures? Like, what's your motivation for taking them?
Oh, I just like continued education, I guess. I don't know. I don't think education stops at a certain age, and it seems like these lectures are trying to stay up to date. And so I like that they are contemporary information, but they also get trapped in a bubble. So I like that the information is coming out and it's relevant to today. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Is
What
there a
about you?
specific um well, it's a terrible question. It's the hardest question to answer. Why are you doing? Because I think it's generally like for me, it's it's like, well, actually, I guess maybe I have a concrete answer, which is something like I'm trying to get a philosophical enough background, educated enough background to sort of talk about certain ideas and do it in a way where people go, okay, this guy, he isn't just making this stuff up. Because I have certain ideas that I'm wanting to share, but it's like, it's that thing of like, if you share the ideas and you haven't done the work to like understand the field and you're going into a new field, like philosophy, if you share those ideas, people will look at you like, okay, well, you don't know this stuff, we're not going to listen to you. And so I kind of want to do the background work to understand the stuff.
That makes sense. You want to get like a pedigree in the field so that you can have status, I guess. You feel like you might not be fit. Is that kind of an issue?
Yeah, I mean, the words you used are not my favorite words, like
Yeah, I'm
that I'm
pretty
not
blunt.
fit,
Sorry.
but no, that's good. That's good. But yeah, but that is basically it. Well, I do think I'm fit. I just think that like if I have information that's valuable, which I really do think I do, then it would be way more effective if I can communicate to not only people who will just listen to anything, but also people who are educated and then go, this guy's educated. Because I want to be able to, I think if I did talk about it without an education, it would be effective, but just not nearly as effective as if I'm educated.
I think that's fair to say. Yeah. That's fair to say.
Do you have a specific sort of set of types of interests that you're more drawn towards? In courses, do you find yourself listening more to philosophy or psychology or
Definitely the psychology. I wish there were the things that I personally like, but I don't know if people develop education for the things that I tend to gravitate towards. I know that university has developmental psychology, but I look forward to hopefully this place, Peterson Academy, getting that too. And I
and
also
what's your
like.
motive?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering what's your motivation for doing debates and what do you like in that? Because I'll say this too, like that's another part of why I like being here as well is being able to connect with people because I have this idea. I think lots of people don't have this idea. I have this idea that communicating information is really doing something. Like if you talk to somebody about something that matters, that's really doing something. Like I feel like if I just meet somebody randomly and I talk to them and we actually have a conversation, to me that's like something is happening on the global scale because information is being transferred, this and that. And so here it's just more of that. It's like there's more ability to. I was digressing from the original thing I asked, but yeah.
No, that makes sense. I agree with that. I think it does bridge a lot of gaps. I don't know how else to say it. I think you're right. So you asked me what my motivation is towards debating, right?
Yeah.
I think I like to tell stories, so I pay attention a lot to the zeitgeist, and I notice there's a lot of issues with communication. And even in my career, I noticed there was a lot of issues in communication between upper management, between the lowest, employee. And I think debate kind of helps us organize our communication, if that makes sense. It's a different style. Like I've learned how to talk to kids while being a coach. I've learned how to talk to C-suite executives while being in management. And then whenever I look at debate, I look at academics trying to talk, and it just fascinates me how that language is put together. I like the structure of it. I'm fascinated by linguistics, memetics. I think debate offers something that business speak and literature and everything else doesn't offer.
What fascinates you about linguistics and memetics?
How language changes over time, how ideas change over time. That's probably the simplest way I can answer that. Yeah.
I also have a fascination with that. I have this feeling like words are under the surface and they're way more important than we realize. Like I feel like even just like words that sound like other words maybe affect our psychology the way we hear them, and words that because you know this, like if you know somebody's name and you hear somebody else that has this person's name, my experience often is that I will think of the other person. I'll be like, oh, this other person. Like it kind of reminds me of that. And then, you know, the yeah, it feels like there's a whole psychology happening of like the way words and language develop, where it's like, well, in the same way that Jordan Peterson talks about myths developing across time and how myths battle it out, I wonder if the same thing happens with words. If like the correct word that kind of sounds perfect, because sometimes you find this, like sometimes there's words where it's like, it feels like the word is sounds perfect for exactly what it is. It's like, well, that word is just absolutely perfect. But yeah, I find that interesting.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I need to revisit it, but I like that conversation between Jordan Peterson and Richard Dawkins. I've been trying to read Richard Dawkins' Selfish Gene because he talks about memetics, and it's just such a hard thing to understand, but it's also simple at the same time. I don't know how else to say it. Like you just look at a gene on code or whatever, and you're like, okay, now try to apply that idea to, or try to apply that structure to ideas. And I'm so interested in learning like how ideas spread, and that helps me as a writer, if that makes sense. I think that's what, to go back to that question, I think that's also what motivates me towards debate, because I like to listen to people's best arguments. It helps me understand and learn better.
Yeah, I found it really much more difficult than the normal format because normally when I talk to people, it's like I can give an idea and see where I'm at and then like kind of update it, but having to just sort of sit there and present an entire thing for some reason it did something where it made me I think this is really good. It made me feel really unarticulate. I felt like, oh wow, there's this I really could work on articulating. And I think the same thing happens when I write. I realize like, oh well, this is really improving my articulation. I'll sometimes say it feels almost like taking coffee. Like I'll write a bunch and then I walk away and I'm just like articulating to people and I'm like, whoa, I just gained this like superpower.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I agree with that. The thing with writing is, yeah, it helps a ton. It has helped me a ton. I went from like, I used to do ums and stutters and all this, and I've slowed down my speech a lot. And I notice it whenever I talk to younger people. They're so like, I don't know if it's age or my writing or whatever I've done in my life, but I feel like I'm so slow, if that makes sense, you know? I feel like I have
Oh,
to slow everything down.
like you're slower than young people talk?
Yeah, I don't know how else to say that. I feel slower than a lot of people whenever I try to talk.
You know, this is something I noticed. It feels like that's not a good thing. I notice I do this too, where the more good I get at conversation, the more I can like spit out a soliloquy and I lose people. Versus I think that like quick, like engaging, make sure you're on off is better than like what I'm doing right now, which is just like, you know?
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what it is. I've had so many conversations, I guess. I'm not that old. I'm only in my 30s, but I've had a lot of conversations that I'm just to the point where like I'm trying to just say the thing that I need to say and then be done. I don't know. Like I really like the take inspiration from the Nietzschean thing, like what you say in an entire book. Like I can't remember how it goes, right? Like he's saying that I condense your ideas into a sentence. I think that's what it is,
Yeah.
right? Something like that.
I I think that's um like the absolute optimal inspiration when it comes to communication is how do you absolutely minimize the words you use, the amount of words, the amount of time it takes to say something. I completely agree.
Yeah, and then there's the extreme things where it's like more like 6, 7, and like modern kind of jokes and memes, right? Like that's a reduction of language, but it means something really big. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, but when you say it, I don't think I do. Like I kind of do, but I don't. Could you explain that?
Yeah, I'm trying to say like
Well, and what 6, 7 means exactly? That's the one where it's confusing.
I guess that was really abstract and left field. That's kind of how my brain works. Sorry. It's more like it seems like our current direction has been how can we transfer the most information in the shortest amount of time possible? And you can see that with like how we used to transfer information, which was like long documents, and then it was books, and then it became newspaper, and then it became video, and then now it's TikTok, and it's like 10-second videos, and we're just trying to cram as much information into the smallest amount of thing. And then whenever you have like children's fun stuff like 6, 7, it means like it means something to them, and it communicates something like you don't I don't know how else to say it. Like they're just saying
Yeah, yeah,
something
yeah.
so tiny that but it means so much.
Well, it does mean a lot because I've looked it up and I don't exactly understand what it means. It means like just something you say and it doesn't have meaning is almost what it means, right?
I think it's literally just to get a reaction out of adults. I think that's the whole stupid meme behind it, yes.
Right.
But that means a lot, and it's just you saying 2 words. I think some of our goals is just to, like we've existed for so long at this point. Like I think we are just constantly trying to figure out how can I say the most in the least amount of time.
My direction is to come at a different place, which is that I look at what am I trying to communicate as opposed to how am I trying to communicate. Because if I know what I'm trying to communicate,
It's
then
fair.
it seems like it's easy to communicate in a succinct fashion.
Yeah.
It seems like especially when I'm lost, I don't know how to communicate. That's when I sort of talk a lot. But when I know exactly what when I've parsed it out, maybe through talking to people or actually writing it out, then I can just, I can hit it.
I think you're saying, I think it's another Nietzschean thing you're saying. It's either Nietzsche or Jung. I don't remember, but it's if you know why, you can say almost anyhow or something like that. If you know how, you can say, I think it's why first. I think that's kind of what I heard you say.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds right.
You know, I'm referring to. I'm trying to remember it. I can't
I
remember
don't,
these quotes. I usually write everything down and then I go look it up.
I don't remember this exact quote.
It's something like that. It's if you know why, then you can solve almost anyhow. Something like that.
I'm fascinated with that ability to like, you know, analyze language and communicate, but I I am stuck on like, well, what is it you're trying to communicate? Because this is, and I always come to this when I'm talking to people because I feel like to a large extent people don't know what's meaningful to interact with or engage with. So
That's fair.
s- so it's an interesting point of conversation to me because I think we can collectively start to narrow in on important things to do.
Oh wow, that's a I think that's a really complicated direction if you want to go there, because then that becomes, in my mind, that becomes, well, people generally talk about the things that they care to talk about, right?
People generally talk about the things they care to talk about. Yeah, but I feel like,
Right.
but I think there's a lot of inefficiency that happens with it where, so like, for example, somebody maybe cares about a certain set of things. They care about having a relationship. They care about keeping it fun and light. They care about maybe certain things like organization between the relationship. They do these certain things. And then I wonder if, like, well, once they've solved those, then they don't know what to do. So they kind of like, don't do much of anything. But, and then I think it seems like, and maybe this sounds really rigid to me, but it seems like sometimes people will get to a place where their goal of a interaction or conversation is to be able to talk without really having anything to say.
that's that's yeah. Are you saying like face to face, or are you saying like through text?
Through anything.
Anything? Yeah, I could see that. I think definitely depends on who you're talking to for sure. And like if you have an objective, like what's the why am I here engaging with you? You know, that kind of matters.
Yeah. Well, uh, why am I engaging with you? Yeah. Like but there's so many things we could be doing, and I feel like sometimes we're not, um, only because we don't know how, in terms of like, we're here learning on the academy sort of academic things, and then we can be sharing and sort of building constantly our understanding of improving the way we understand the depth of the world from different perspectives. We can sort of incorporate all this. But then I feel like there's a certain set of people who you'll go and you'll talk to them, and there's this feeling of like no bridge between that. So like once you're in that space of like sort of being able to talk about ideas like we've done here, where we've talked about like the foundation of language and all this stuff, once you're there, you can kind of get there. But I'm interested in like bridging that gap sometimes.
Oh, I love living in that conflict. Not because I try to make it happen, but whenever it does happen, uh, I I like to figure out how to make that bridge exactly what you're talking about. I don't enjoy when there's, you know, a lot of conflict in a conversation, but I do like exploring it, and if the other person is capable of regulating into creating that bridge, because I'm convinced that it takes I'm convinced that it takes a lot of experience and wisdom. I don't know how else to say it, to be able to have a disagreement and not become emotionally elevated.
Experience and wisdom, but I think there's also a thing of like when you say experience and wisdom, what I think about is like people have to go through life, they have to come to the experiences and they have to understand why the wisdom is important and then they have to download the wisdom. There's this kind of process. But then when you're talking about mimetics and like how we're condensing information quicker, it's like we might be able to get there quicker to where maybe in the past it took somebody 20 years before they like got, you know, they turned around. But then maybe if we get better at mimetics, we can be able to communicate that information quicker, we can isolate it quicker, and we can get to a point where we're increasing the quality of the conversation more rapidly.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I think you can't teach wisdom, and you have to create the environment so that someone can gain wisdom. And so maybe that's kind of what you're talking about, is that you can have better quality conversations and, you know, more hygienic conversations rather than this, what I see like social media is just like, you suck, no, you suck, ah. And it's just this hyper aggressive, disembodied, like, I don't know if they're mad and they don't know if I'm mad, but here we are saying words that could be associated with being mad kind of stuff. And I forgot where I was going with that.
How do
Basically,
you
more
yeah,
hygienic conversation is great and healthy, in my opinion. So I agree.
hygienic?
Yeah.
Interesting. I don't think about it in that terms. I mean, I'm not really at all like any amount of conflict. I don't really care that much. Like, um,
I don't mean like scrubbing your language and making it sensitive and things like that. I'm all for like, I love being blunt and just saying things straight out. I just hygienic, I mean more like, if you're going to have a logical debate, then emotion's not a great thing to come in with. That's, I guess, what I mean.
yeah, my understanding though is that there's two types of conversations. There's conversations where something is happening, there's something productive about it, there's some exchange of information, and there's conversations where nothing productive is happening, where and people purposely end up in these conversations where they will troll, they'll spam, they'll use all the rhetorical fallacies to avoid having the conversation. And so like in terms of well, is the conversation emotional and these things, it's like, well, I don't want to hurt people. I want people to feel comfortable engaging, but I'm viewing the metric of a good conversation as is it productive or is it not productive? You
Yeah,
know.
it's hard. It's hard because you have to both, whoever's engaging, if it's a lot of people, you guys have to all agree on what productive means. I don't know. I see even the trolling and other things, I can see them as productive, if that makes any sense.
Productive
It's
productive
productive for me.
trolling.
No, no, no. The
Trolling?
trolling, like hyper trolling, of course, is just a waste of time. I don't even, if it's obvious hyper trolling, I'm not engaging. But if it's that like weird middle
Yeah.
ground where they're, you know, just a bit
Well,
more aggressive.
it's the Joker archetype. It's like I'm gonna play around the edges and see kind of what happens.
See, yeah, I like that because it, you can lean into that. Does that make sense? Not you do
Yeah.
it too, but you know,
But when it comes to that kind of playful stuff, I also have another distinguishing metric that I would employ, which is it something playful that reveals a deeper truth, or is it something playful that avoids a deeper truth? I think
Both.
that distinction,
Does
both are
both.
good.
No, it does both. It probably does both.
Well, in different cases though, but this is where I would argue that if it's something playful that avoids a deeper truth, then it's not good. So like people will sort of get caught and then they'll start trolling and sort of like pretend like, oh, I wasn't even being serious the whole time. And I'm like, okay, well, now you're avoiding this conversation mattering versus somebody is getting hit hard and then they're making jokes and it's pointing to the fact that there's something deep happening, but they're not wanting to touch it, but they're playing with it. I feel like those that I would make the qualitative judgment that one is entirely bad and one is entirely good.
Yeah, I think you could if you have your standard of productivity set. I think if you said, this is my end goal that I want to reach, and if I don't reach it, then, everything else is bad. I think that makes sense. But I look at conversation as just like organized chaos, and I don't know where it's going to go. And so I want to see where it's going to go.
Hmm.
I don't really have a set destination. Like today, I didn't walk in here, like we didn't prepare. Like I'm just kind of going with the flow here. So I guess I kind of don't expect anything anymore.
Well, this is a really exciting thing for me because um it so interacting with you, other students, it's exciting because it feels like, every time I talk to somebody and I go away, sometimes I'll go away from the conversation and I'll feel like, wow, I just missed. I really could have done a lot more interesting there, but I go away from it and then I I know them better. I know next time, well, maybe there's this way we can engage and be productive because like what you're doing with the debates, I think is just the absolute best. It's like you're building something, you're building this space where people can come and have this disagreement in like a really interesting way. And that's what I'm really interested in is doing things, these kind of conversations, but having them mean something more because like those debates, like I'll say exactly why I think they mean something is like when I do them, well, of course there's meaning clearly and all that. Um, because I'm having to articulate myself better, but I think even potentially when people watch them, it brings people in to deeper levels of discussion. It makes it engaging in a certain way.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I've never really like thought it, this is kind of just a win thing. Like I was inspired, I think, mainly by how Peter Boghossian does his street epistemology. I like, I don't know if you're familiar with that at all. Have you
No.
seen that? It's probably my favorite way, and I would love to do it in the Peterson Academy one day, one time. It's basically this game where there's a spectrum on the floor, and it's from strongly disagree to strongly agree. And then it goes to the next level, agree, neutral, and there's a claim on a board, and everyone reads the claim, and then Peter says go, and everyone goes and picks a side, and then he usually isolates the two polar opposites and says, okay, I want you to look at them, and I want you to say what you think they think. Kind of, it's just this wonderful format. I can send you one of the videos, but
I actually have seen those. I just didn't remember the name. Yeah, I've seen that.
yeah, the street epistle that kind of inspired me. But I mean, I've been watching debates for, I don't know, 7, 8 years on and off. I used to have a really long commute and I would listen to them. And this thing with the Peterson Academy just seemed like an opportunity because I don't know. I feel like the people there want to have deep, meaningful conversations, but like I also want to have and see deep, meaningful conversations. So I feel like I just need to be the change. I don't know how else to explain it. That's just how I work. I'm like, I want that thing to happen. I'm not going to sit here and wait. I'm just going to try.
Do you ever want to do debates yourself? Like be a part of it?
Yeah, I think I would. I think I would. I would probably prefer to have more like I like Socratic dialogue where it's just what about this? What about that? Like questioning back and
Hmm.
forth and trying to dig to the core and the deep things. And I like the idea of debate. And I need to figure out how my debate style would be because I don't typically like to say a lot of words. I just like to like if I have the chance to go into system 2 and I've thought through my emotions, I'm just going to try to make it a sentence. And so whenever I think of debate, I feel like I have to make this thing, this spiel.
Oh, I mean that's not at all. I don't think you would experience that because like with this debate I had with him, it's like I immediately knew the answers. I just literally could not say them. It was just like to forming the words. And so I think the large rants come from like not being able to succinctly say the thing or people who are kind of gotten used to being stuck in their ways and just like rambling along. But like when it's, if you could be in a debate and just say a sentence in response, I think that would be astonishing. That'd be very skillful.
I don't know. I don't know if I could do that, but I would, of course, I would support it. Yeah, the debate structure is interesting because you need to, say your argument, say why you have your argument, and there needs to be a structure within it too. And I think I would try to respect that if I were to participate in a debate.
What would you be your favorite subject to debate?
Wow. Hmm. That's a tough one because I like to talk about really, I think, hard and controversial things. So maybe something like I would, I don't know, I like theism conversations. I like to listen to those a lot, like the Bill Nye and Cliff. I can't remember his last name, Heath Hinchcliffe or something. I can't remember him. He's a really good Christian apologetic. Uh, yeah, I like psychology. As far as debate goes, I do like talking about hard political things like abortion. And I mean, think of any policy that people, guns, think of any policy that people are hyper polarized on. Those are the areas I like to talk about. But as far as like metaphysical stuff, I kind of steer away from because I don't know why I have this aversion for metaphysical stuff. It just seems kind of annoying to me, if that makes sense.
Does that make sense? You know,
It's a
I've always been so interested in metaphysical stuff. It doesn't make sense, but
so yeah, I don't know how to describe it. It's like it's just I like storytelling. I like to make up fiction and I like to make up allegories. So whenever I look at metaphysical stuff, that's what I see. I see stories and fiction.
interesting.
I've I have lots of screenwriting in my background. I have lots of allegorical stories. I have a like I have two books that I've written on my own. Not I'm not publishing anything, but I've spent a lot of time writing, and it's hard for me because I've peeled back the curtain on the structures of writing, and then I'm also looking into memetics, and I'm also looking into psychology, and all of these things are kind of converging and creating my bias. And I understand that it's my bias, and so I'm constantly trying to be like, well, I could be stupid, but I still have this mode where I'm like, hey, like this looks exactly the same as this, meaning like the story of theism and however many theisms there are looks the same structure as my fairy tale. And so I struggle trying to separate those, if that makes sense.
C.S. Lewis said that the writer should not try to be original and should just write what they want, and then it will be original by just existing in that correct creative space. I don't know if that's correct. I think um
It's fair to say because it's your brain that's made it up. So it's no one else like it. No one forced you to do it and told you what's right.
Well, there's something I think to be said. I think the idea is that trying to avoid something, because like maybe this is an archetype of the rebellious child. A rebellious child is it's a pathology because it's marked by an avoidance, trying to avoid something. The rebellious child is trying not to be like their parents in some way, and then by doing that, they become more like them. I don't know if that's an archetype that you're familiar with, but that's something that I see. And I see this archetype of like trying to avoid something as a sort of a suboptimal way of approaching it.
Yeah, are you saying I'm avoiding metaphysics?
I don't even remember now, actually. I
I
thought
don't
you
think
said you were avoiding something.
I don't think I'm avoiding metaphysics. I think that I I would love to learn more and I
Oh
would
no,
love to hear more.
it was sorry. It sounded like you said you were trying to avoid having your writing seem like a an archetypal structure, like a theistic myth that you already know. That's what it sounded like you were saying.
I don't remember. I think I was saying that I can't see the difference between the book of Job and the difference between Mary Had a Little Lamb or some uh, fairy tale.
Okay, I misunderstood you. I thought you were saying you don't want your writing to match some other
No,
structure.
no, no, no. I'm saying
Okay,
I cannot tell the difference personally. I can't tell the difference between a book in the Bible versus a fairy tale. That's
so
all.
are you quite literarily scholared? Like you've seen a lot of literature that you could sort of see the patterns that emerge between them, or you just they're just look the same. Like,
I don't know if I'm
have you?
literary scholared, but
Well,
what's
like what is your thesis from that observation that you see that? Is are you extracting from that there is archetypal stories that are really deep to humanity that just keep telling them getting told, or are you saying that you find it dry, that they're kind of the same? You're like, well, why are you retelling the same story? I'm not sure what the
oh
thesis
no,
is.
no, I'm just saying that I can't. I'm saying me personally, I can't see the difference between the two stories. I agree with that idea though that these stories are being repeated with just different skin, like the C.S. Lewis quote you just said. Uh, I think originality is impossible, and it's just a combination of old ideas put together in a new way. And that's, I think, how we see creativity. But as far as like, I'm just speaking on a personal level. Like, I liked whenever debate topics are around theology and whether God is real, because I am at the point to where I cannot see the difference between the two. The the theistic text and the fictional story. So I like to hear people who are hyper theistic and who are hyper non theistic talk about it because I want to see what they see that I don't see, trying to make that make
Now, now you're comparing people debating in relation to a theistic thing making sense with a non-theistic thing. Are you saying that you don't even see how the debating people are differing, where they're sort of they have the same story and you don't understand what even the difference between that is?
Ooh, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, if you've seen debates before, you'll just recognize that people today are saying the same things that people have been saying forever. So yeah, I guess is that kind of what you asked?
Yeah. And then in debates, you're interested in seeing if there's something new that arises.
Sure, I'm interested in seeing the contemporary take.
Now, this idea that nothing is new, I know this is what James Orr said at the beginning of the philosophy course. He said philosophy is just sort of the same thing, but it seems like a matter of record that things are new because if you look at just the progression of society, it's like we're constantly improving, making new things, increasing the complexity.
Yeah, uh, I can't tell if it's us finding something new or or us combining things that were old so that something appears to be new.
Well, that would be Alfred North Whitehead's idea of what is happening in society is that there's this concrescence that things come together, then they concress, and then a new thing emerges. But
It's fair.
if you do that though, like if you look at the one node where that happens, it doesn't look interesting. But if you look at the scale, it suddenly that definition is very meaningful. So for example, let's say we take music, take two notes, have a relationship between two notes. You go, well, that's not that much. You take now two more notes and have another relationship. You go, it's just the same thing. We're just doing notes and notes. And then you do that again. You go, well, it's the same thing. The whole time we're only just having a relationship between notes, but the result in the end is that you have something which feels in some way much larger than just the sum of its components.
Yes. I, yes. That makes sense. As you make something more complicated, then it becomes novel. I think that's kind of what you're saying, right?
It becomes novel. Yeah, 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 exactly.
That makes sense. I mean, I I've seen like new writers struggle with like how do I come up with something new? And I'm just like, well, what do you like to think about? What do you like to talk about? And I generally just point them to like, well, start there, make something, and let's see what happens. And you do get individuals who create like horror stories, and you do see individuals who do the typical scream slasher, and then you see individuals that do like really really abstract body horror. And then I'm faced with, well, how did you get the extreme like fancy body horror, and how did you get the extreme or just the simple scream story? And I think there's something original between both of them still, even if they're like the scream story is just something that's been repeated a million times.
Yeah. I actually have maybe an opposite perspective when it comes to this because now I'm kind of understanding what you're saying. So my perspective actually is that our perspective of art in the modern day and age is that it is like you're describing, kind of a retelling of stories. There's kind of a playing around with these ideas. It's kind of like this dressing up the old archetypes. And I think that we have that understanding of art because we've almost reached the end of some kind of artistic the end of the romantic artistic age because I think at this so like in the Baroque era they started like becoming like ornate and like complex, or I guess it was pre-Baroque, and then they got to the sort of classical and they kind of simplified it, but the ideas were like condensed. It's like the Mometics, and then they got to the Romantic era and then they were like, well, let's actually just like let's do what like feels good, and then it feels like that movement never stopped. It just kind of progressed into the impressionistic era and the abstract era, and but what never happened was a return to like meaning. And I my understanding actually is that art is tremendously meaningful, but nobody nowadays is really producing tremendously meaningful art. Like the art nowadays is actually not generally visual art or writing. It's generally like memes and TikTok videos because that's what actually engages us. And so like we're not actually we think like, well, art's boring, and yet we're just stuck on TikTok watching art, is what I would say.
Because it's, oh man, it feeds that loop. But I hear what you're saying. I think there's another layer to add on that, right? Like uh, generations pass, and so you can convince the generation below you that what you've said is new, even though you're just repeating the things that you experienced. You know what I mean?
Yeah, oh, I certainly do. And mm, I'm just gonna add to my point though and say this that it feels like yes, TikTok is where the art's happening, for example, but also it's garbage because it's not doing anything.
Okay,
But
wait,
like
pause there. Why is it garbage? Pause there. Why is it garbage?
because it doesn't provide any value to people's lives. Because I think that like a person like you and me, if we are like mature and we are stable, we shouldn't be participating in any art. This is the problem I see. We shouldn't be because it's not actually valuable. What's valuable is our relationships and doing productive things. And so this is where I see like art wants to be this thing that grabs your attention, but what we need now is something to do. We need art that actually is us doing something productive because everybody talks about this. Like everybody talks about how bad it is to just watch videos all the time. And my understanding of that is that, well, we maybe have gotten to an age where we don't want to just witness art, we want to be a part of it, and that it has no meaning where it's at right now.
That's a lot to unpack. I'm trying to think of how to respond. The You said it's garbage because it doesn't have use. It's not productive. Is it not productive because like you don't see value in it? Like what? How is it that millions of people are using this product and it's not productive?
Well, I think that it is maybe as productive as we can possibly reach with something that's only just um entertaining. So like
Yeah, that's a good point.
an example of doing better than that is like Peterson Academy. It's like, well, you can be entertained, but also like way engaging. And you do see that on like these platforms too. They'll show educational stuff as well. You'll get like, wow, you'll learn stuff. Um, and so it
I
is
think,
moving in that direction sometimes. It's not all garbage. There is some stuff that's like,
yeah, I think it's a different strokes for different folks kind of thing. A lot of people might not have the time to sit down and watch these things because they're dealing with other tasks. There could be a lot of reasons why TikTok is better than the Peterson Academy. And I think that's a really hard pill to swallow for a lot of people is that TikTok is just a superior method of transferring information right now.
that is interesting. Now, as students, this seems like something that we could do that's very, very critical is we could start trying to present information in that like really hyper quick format that that because Jordan Peterson talks about um it maybe he doesn't. It's just like if you can have something which grabs your attention, it's going to be such a clearly better form of information transfer. If you have to pay attention, if you just sort of force yourself to pay attention to something versus it just grabbing your attention and it's useful.
Yeah, it's definitely something I don't know. I have a kid and I'm trying to understand like Piaget and Mary, the attachment theory lady. I'm trying to understand developmental psychologist, and there's something to be said about what they have found, and even how like consciousness and intelligence becomes, and how us later in stages still do the exact same things. I know that's
Okay,
really,
going
I know that's abstract. So like you look at how an infant starts sucking their thumb, and it has nothing to do with, as far as like Piaget thinks, it has nothing to do with pleasure seeking and comfort seeking. It has to do with uh, you have this biological response to suck, and your hands just happen to bat around. And what do you know? Your thumb landed next to your mouth, and now you're sucking on your hand because you have this biological reflex, and that gives you this regulation. So there's the infant just wants regulation. It never wants to be disrupted. When it's disrupted, it wants to regulate. It's not happy, sad, or angry. So the sucking would regulate it. And so I think of that and I try to apply that to a teenager. And then I try to apply that to an adult. And I try to think like, what is it that like I'm seeking right now, like what novelty is it that I'm seeking right now so that I can regulate? Because maybe I didn't eat breakfast and I'm going to scroll TikTok for, I don't do this personally, but I'm just describing, something that might happen in the world. I didn't eat breakfast. I'm gonna scroll TikTok for an hour, and then I'm gonna get in a conversation with a buddy or maybe a spouse, and we're gonna get into an argument. Well, I didn't eat, so I'm easily agitated, and so I think what I'm getting at is that this TikTok thing can fill in gaps of regulation whenever you're an adult who can abstract things. I think that's a lot of issues I see talking or being passed around on social media. And then I don't know if I've noticed it in the Peterson Academy. I don't know if they talk necessarily about social media. I need to look more around and see if they have courses on that. Did that connect at all, or was that just so out of left field?
No, that I feel like that connected. It feels like it's a more academic way of, if I am understanding this correctly, it's a more academic way of saying that we watch social media and that stuff because it's filling some need within us, but it's taking into account Piaget and developmental psychology.
Yeah, so the infant structurally does this. The adult will have the exact, it's in us, it's the human part of us. It's just we have built on complex things. So the infant has these systems that are working independently first. It's just my arms move and my arms grasp and my mouth sucks. And those things are incoherent and it's just all biology. And then as the child develops, this pattern repeats where the thumb goes there and it sucks, and then it becomes a habit, and you can only hope that that habit breaks because you don't want your 5-year old still sucking their thumb. It could mess up their teeth, it could do all kinds of things, they could be in class and socially it sorry if I'm rambling.
No, not at all.
So you want, it's these developmental stages that people need to, these milestones that people need to meet. And so whenever I witness, uh, I guess I've seen it in my work. I've seen it at work where I see people spend their entire lunch break going through shorts and TikTok, which is a fine way to spend your lunch and whatever you want to do. But I think uh, that is a symptom of maybe not hitting developmental milestones. I'm not going to try to diagnose anybody, but I'm saying that that fills a need, a basic need that we have as humans, and it is a good transfer of information because it's always something new. I'm always learning something new just in 10 seconds or however long it is.
I disagree with this perspective because this is the model, and I'll go into what it means psychologically. The idea is that we, and this applies to other things, so I'll use the example I normally hear it in. Evolutionarily, we built certain systems and tools, and then, for example, junk food hijacks them. And this is a similar idea. It's that we have these certain proclivities and needs and ways of acting, and that certain things are hijacking us because that person missed the developmental stage there. They missed socializing, so now they're watching people socializing on TikTok.
Maybe.
Well, the implication is that this is dangerous. They need socializing, and instead of going and socializing or doing nothing, which would be better, they're just watching it online, and it's sort of hijacked their system in a way. Does that tie into the Piagetian model?
I think that's kind of what I'm trying to say. Yeah. It's doing something, it's replacing, technology replaces and automates things we don't like to do. We have to repeat something so that we can master it, and then we create technology, and then it automates the thing that we don't have to repeat.
This is an alternative model, and I think this model is interesting if it's true because it actually provides a solution besides like just trying to train that internal self. And this is the model. It takes into account maybe a Freudian death urge. Do you know what that is?
Are you like going into like ego death stuff?
No, it's that I think this is Freud that he posited that people have an urge to maybe die or like, these kind of urges to do things which are really not productive to you. But I'm sure he must have observed
Like
this in his
children
patients,
or the whole
everybody.
everybody?
So
Okay.
like what I'm saying is I'll cut to the short of it that when people are eating junk food, when people are watching TikTok and doing this stuff, I'm saying that the reason that they're doing it is the effect of what's happening. So everybody else goes, well, they watch TikTok and it's just messing their brain up and they're not doing anything productive, but that's not what they want to do. I'm saying that's what they want to do. I'm saying
I
that
agree.
at a deep level, that's the urge is like when you eat garbage food, you consume garbage content. The goal is to almost kill yourself in a slow
Oh,
to
wow.
not to numb yourself, to put
Okay.
yourself in a state of unconscious being.
I see what you're saying. I think that's a really moral argument, and I'll disagree with that one. I think it's just people doing what they want to do, as simple as that.
Yeah, I mean that's
I don't
fair.
think it needs to I don't think it needs to go to like they're aiming for death. I think it's just them.
Well, yeah, I mean I'll unpack it one layer deeper to sort of show maybe how it's not as judgmental. I think that it may not be them as much that the drive of death is coming from. It may be like a collective thing. So like I'll give a concrete example. Let's say somebody is in a group of people and the group of people is just annoyed with the way that they are. Maybe they're challenging the group too much. The person's just like standing out too much. Maybe collectively there'll be this feeling of like, well, this person needs to just settle down. They need to go away. And that person kind of intuits it empathically and they feel the same thing like, well, I don't want to be in these groups because they're like it's just, and so they do that. They just do nothing. So I'm saying that that death urge is not necessarily arising from their psychological state, but maybe a collective unconscious, something like that.
Oh, group dynamics is interesting too, because typically, yeah, there's one person that people can look at as the weakest link, and maybe have more banter towards. More that's I think that's a well understood concept in sociology.
Yeah.
That's pretty tough. I see it all the time. I do game. I game a lot, and I have do competitive gaming. I have this group, and there's it's like every other night or every night even. There's always like someone new in the group, including myself. When everyone just kind of like gives a little bit extra like banter towards.
Yeah, towards somebody.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's it's hard because it's hard to describe because I think it is how you respond to it, and if you're patient enough, and if you want to deal with that. That's a hard one, dude. Being the black sheep of the group.
Definitely.
That's a hard one. I think whenever the PA first started, I had this like idea in my head. I was like, the the people that want to be here are going to be like the black sheep of academia.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's just what
I,
I don't know. I'm not actually.
I won't say names, but I have talked to people who expressed feeling like they were the black sheep, and I would say that I'm certainly a black sheep. Would you say you're a black sheep?
I don't. Yeah, I don't know. I like to think that I'm just nothing. So maybe that makes me a black sheep.
I don't understand that.
I don't I like the psychoanalytical idea of relation. I can't, or maybe it's even a philosophical idea. Like you can't, the observer can't observe itself. So I feel like looking at myself and labeling myself is worthless. I feel like I am whatever you want me to be. So, uh, Josh, if you want me to be, a butthead, then I'm a butthead. Like you make me, or Ubuntu, I am who I am because who you are. Things like that.
Yeah, that's smart.
I,
That's deep concept, yeah.
I guess I like to pretend that I perform that. I don't know what I do because I can't control my unconscious stuff, right?
That's interesting. So, and I think this is actually a wise way of looking at it. There's certain things you view as not viewable about yourself. You
Sure.
view
I can do the. I think in the evolution and sex course, she talks about this objective journaling, and I've done that for a while, and I did it for a while, and I think it helped a lot. It helped me understand myself a lot, and I have a wife that can help me kind of. I kind of like told her like, hey, this is what I wrote down. This is what I think I saw in myself. What do you think? And so I kind of had her as a soundboard, and I think I nailed a lot of it. It's really hard to look at yourself objectively.
Wow, now you're talking about two different things here. I thought you were talking about, so before you were saying not seeing yourself, and now you're saying trying to see yourself.
Yeah, I'm saying that I like to pretend that I don't see myself as anything at all times so that I don't fool myself into being something I don't want to be.
I think I do the same thing actually.
How's that for more complicated?
Well, I think that's really wise. I don't think I've ever heard anyone else say that, but that is actually how I feel like I operate, where if something arises, I don't want to identify with it. I view it as, well, that could be from anywhere. That could be from the collective unconscious. That could be
It could
something
be from
else.
them. It's just the way I see it is if someone calls me, if they say that I am this, then I'm like, well, that's what you want me to be. So, okay. I just say,
Right.
okay.
Right. Because like even in the identity of like a black sheep, it's this idea that there's a certain way of being and you're sort of outside of that. It's like, well, the framing of that in the first place is, yeah. I mean, to that level, I would say, yeah, I wouldn't even say I'm a black sheep. I would just say that if you are in that paradigm of viewing a black sheep as somebody who is the
I agree.
most different than a different group of people, then
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, like, whenever I think to myself, this is me being like extremely open for some reason. But yeah, I typically am like, I think I'm socially maladaptive. So maybe I'm a black sheep. But then whenever I have to be like, you know what, I'm nothing.
that's a very useful way to do that, actually. Yeah. Um,
I think both of them can be true.
both. How can they both be true?
How can they both be true that you are nothing and you are a black sheep? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I guess I kind of see that. I mean, that is abstract psychological way of viewing it, but
I guess it just means that at one point in a relation, you can be a black sheep. So among this group, you're a black sheep. And then with another relation, you're nothing.
well, maybe I've started to articulate what I was this idea a bit deeper, but um, if you're a black sheep in a group, this has a certain perspective. It's like, they say media can always say the true stuff, but still be biased by what they focus on. If you identify something as black sheep and that's important, that's a certain way of categorizing and identifying things that's not potentially useful. So in the set of people who will identify somebody as a black sheep, there is this importance put on how does somebody fit into the group. Whereas I would say, kind of like C.S. Lewis said, trying to be original or not trying to be original is not the best way to do it. It's maybe not an important thing to focus on in the first place, to where then it's like, well, is the person the black sheep? Yeah, but from a perspective that's maybe not important.
I hear you. Yeah. I'm trying to draw from like my experience. Like I've had to be a manager of several people, and you have to be pretty social for that. But typically, I prefer to not be very social. So trying to figure out how this ties into what you just said.
What are your favorite things to do? You don't have to tie it in. You don't
My
have to be
favorite.
polite to always make it. You know what I do all the time in conversations is non sequiturs. If I don't point it out, people don't notice. I'll like ignore what they said and just say something different.
It's okay. It's just hard. We're talking about like really, really complicated stuff I haven't really got a chance to talk about in a long time, or maybe ever. This just isn't these aren't conversations I ever have. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Keep saying, does that make sense? As if that's gonna matter. I need to quit that habit. What do I like to
I,
do? I like to do a lot of stuff, man. I'm pretty chaotic. I don't have one thing that I do very well. I have a lot of things that I do okay. What about you?
like, what kind of things? I like to do computer programming, piano. So I do a lot. Philosophy. That's what I've been doing.
Awesome. Do you feel like your like level of one of those things is extremely high?
Yeah, I think um I was gonna say, I think all of them. That can't be true. I think that piano, uh when it comes to playing, I'm exceptionally good at improvising,
That's cool.
I would say.
That's really cool. So you could like walk into somewhere that has a piano, that people can walk up to and play, and you could just like do a thing.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I wish I could do that with an instrument. Uh, I like to do a lot, man. I uh, I did MMA for a large part of my life. I still like to practice. Exercise is a big part of my life, even though I haven't been able to do it as much. I like to study a lot of random, like uh, anything that comes up to my mind. I'm just like, well, let me look into that. Let me get a book on that. Um, I have a hard time with structure. I don't think uh, I didn't have an environment where structure was a big thing.
Same. Well, I just don't like structure at all. Like what I decided to do like a while back was to set up my environment so I could just do the things that I want to do. And I'm like, well, if I just keep doing those things, so like I have a piano, I have software set up that I can program, I have philosophy that I can access and do that with. It's like, well, if I just bounce around, the one drain I have is chess, where it's like that. I'm not sure if that's productive, but
Eh, pattern recognition. You can look at how it's productive.
yeah, that's true.
It probably helps with piano.
Yeah, it might. There's a way in which abstract patterns can be maybe affecting things that you don't notice.
Yeah, I don't know that much about music theory and piano, but it's patterns and stuff, right?
So you were saying you haven't had conversations sort of like this. Uh, my feeling about that is like it's a conversation sort of going into motivations of things and why things matter to you and that kind of stuff. My understanding is like it's like that's where I go when it's like I'm trying to mm, I don't know. It seems like the most important place to go to me.
I agree. I think it'd be deeper if it wasn't with a stranger, you know? If I
True.
if I knew you at a deeper level, I'd probably be like, "Oh, hey, like that makes sense. Have you thought about this other thing that you do?" But I mean, yeah. Uh, I have no idea how to articulate my motivations, man. I feel like I'm just an empty idiot who can afford Wi-Fi. I'm just someone who can afford electronic equipment, and I can come on the internet and just right now I don't know, I'm just saying words.
First of all, how dare you call me a stranger?
You know what I mean.
I just never heard somebody like call me that to my face. It's something you're supposed to like talk about later or something.
Yeah, that's fair.
No, I'm just kidding. Um, yeah, I mean, I just like
I feel like I shouldn't be here. You know what I'm
I feel
saying?
like you shouldn't be where this conversation, Peterson Academy life.
Yeah. Having like I never would have thought 15 years ago, 16 I don't know, plus that I would have ever be having a conversation like this, where I'm talking about my motivations towards metaphysical topics and memetics and psychology. Like,
Hmm.
would never, would never have thought I would be here, and I don't even know how I got here.
Well, it's very interesting. Well, then how do you feel about it? But the answer probably is nothing. I have no perspective, right?
I do have perspective. I like talking about the things I like to talk about. I like the Jungian idea of loneliness is whenever you're unable to talk about the things you like to talk about. So this is pleasant.
That's good. I I feel like I have this inclination to do this. So like what I'm interested in is like, well, what's meaningful? And so like I'll kind of go in that direction of what's meaningful, but then oftentimes that like runs dry. And I feel like then what I have to do is I have to sort of go down to like base level motivations and like start like going, okay, well, what do different people, what does the other person actually view as meaningful? Because then otherwise I feel like I just wouldn't be able to connect, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. I think I don't know how else to say it. Like I am motivated by I have to prevent myself because I want to go into like my objective journaling and how I analyze myself and why like whenever you talk about motivations, I think about these psychological motivations. I don't think of like, oh, because I love it. I think of like, oh, because of this that happened in my life and what guided me towards this. That's how I think in these kind of psychological terms. Like
Hmm.
I grew up around, I don't, I was never formally diagnosed with ADHD, but I had a very tight group of friends who have bipolar and ADHD. They were diagnosed with bipolar and ADHD. One was extremely ADHD as a child, and that's why the diagnosis was okay, and the bipolar thing was later. Uh, so I had this environment where I was surrounded by people who had difficult lives, and I didn't really have that difficult of a life growing up, but my behavior was formed by them. So it kind of reflects in my adulthood now. I'm kind of paying for it, not in a negative way, but it's just is what it is.
Interesting. You're viewing what's happening as the motivation, what's actually happening. Is that correct? You're viewing the events that happened, the events that led to places as the underlying structure.
Yeah, my formative behavior, my formative years has dictated most of my behavior through my entire life, and it is now that I understand a little bit more and maybe my brain is fully developed. I don't know what it is that's triggered. Maybe it's because I've had a kid and I can see things in the kid, or because I've uh, taught kids. But I'm noticing the things that happened in my formative years continue in my adult years, and I'm trying to figure out how to correct that. And that whenever I think of motivations, that's what I think of is my formative years. So I automatically go to my unconscious responses that I cannot even articulate. I have no idea what they are. I have to have someone else tell me what they are.
Interesting. You actually have like almost like a objective view of your own life, like a top down.
I'm trying. There's no way I can do it, but I'm trying.
Hmm. So do you feel then like a person's background and stuff is massively influential in who they are, as
What do you mean?
opposed to the opposite would be agency? Because it sounds like you're saying the things you do now are more a result of your environment, what happened, which is, I understand, sort of a very, very productive psychoanalytic tool to understand something. But I'm wondering how that plays into like personal agency in the moment. because there's certainly a mix of the two.
Yeah, that's a really hard thing I've been trying to figure out too, is how much of me is me making a decision and how much of me is just me responding to your mouth moving and words hitting my ears.
You know what's really interesting though is that like I've done that too, where I start viewing myself and viewing the things I do as just like I'm doing things. I'm like watching myself do it, and I'm like, okay, like it feels like me. The me is not the thing that's doing it, but the thing that's observing it. And what I've found is that like I then gain somehow more autonomy by doing that because I'm not identifying with like the little reactions.
And are you sure it's not some confirmation bias? It's
Ah,
you reinforcing yourself.
now that you mention it. Well, Well, I mean, maybe I can quantify autonomy where it feels like I then do things. You know what the way I look at it is like this. I look at it like there's productive things to do, which I identify as productive. And if I'm not doing those things, then I view that like it's less of me. But if I'm doing more productive things, then I view it's like more of me. I identify myself with the good parts of myself.
I definitely want to unpack your definition of productive, but first I want to say what I'm talking about. I think I'm maybe stretching the understanding of motivation. I don't know, but I look at it as a repeating pattern. That's what I think of whenever I think of motivation. So it doesn't necessarily have to do with like my agency in coming to this meeting right now. Like this isn't a repeating pattern. I was just like, let's do it. Um, More like when extreme emotions rise. Whenever I respond to, like, I'm very emotionally responsive to music or crowd events. Whenever I watch them, like, I could actually physically tear up. I don't know how to explain that, but I think that's where my motivation
Hold on,
is in the.
I missed a sec. I got lost in that. Wait, yeah,
Yeah.
is in what?
Oh, go ahead. What are you gonna ask? So I can
Oh,
hear it out.
yeah, in relation to the crowd events, because I thought you were saying your motivation was the patterns across time, but then you were
Yeah. So that
describing
would
the
be a.
crowd events.
So the crowd events is like a pattern, right? Like whenever I witness a giant crowd uh, applauding for musician X or whatever, or like I feel that too, and that's a pattern I can't figure out why. Like I've talked to a lot of people, and they're like, "Yeah, I just listen to music. I don't really care. Like the music plays, awesome." But for some reason, I can listen to a live take, and then they nail the note, and I feel emotion from it, and I'm like, "Why is this happening to me? Is this a pattern?" Yes, it always happens to me. So that's what I consider motivation, is whenever that happens, and I don't know how to articulate that. Whenever I get extreme emotion, that's my motivation. So I get extremely emotional whenever I hear other people talk about the things that they like to talk about. So
Hmm.
maybe that's my answer to your question, is what's my motivation for debate? I get extremely emotional whenever I hear people discuss the things that they like to talk about.
That feels like a very, very integrated way of processing things by going off of what really is connecting at all those different levels, your emotional, physical level, spiritual, soul level, like you're following that which is deeply congruent.
Yeah, that's a good word. What is that? That is, dang, what's his name? Who's the congruent guy? Congruency.
Congruent.
He's a very famous psychologist, and I can't remember right now. It'll come back to me.
Oh, I think I maybe know what you're talking about. Maybe.
But yeah, I want to unpack, if you would like, what do you keep using productive on different contexts, And so I kind of understand what you think is productive.
Yeah. Well, this is kind of the most important thing to me in some sense because I'll give the story to make it have it make sense in some way. Um, I wanted to do something artistic, and so I spent a lot of time with this idea of like, well, what is productive? Going through like, well, what is humanity doing? What are different artists doing? What is actually productive? And well, you know, it seems like productivity is a moving away of. I explain this because basically I think it's a really, really important and a question that really needs to be dived into to see the answer to it. But it seems like on the surface, it's like moving away from difficult things, moving away from problematic things. But, but that's not useful because you move away from problematic things. Then what happens if there's no problematic thing right then? So it's also a moving towards, and I would describe it like this: higher complexity, higher beauty in society. That's what I would say is productive.
Yeah, I would push that further according to who.
Yeah. So this, I went this deep with this. I would say this is a logical definition of productivity. So follow me on the logic of this one. So if you go start at the base, go, is it better to have nothing or something? If you conclude something, then well, it it must be more of that something. And so I would say if you have five things, that's five things. But if you have five things that like rhyme with each other, that's more things because there's complexity that's emergent from the interface between them. And so this definition of productivity is derived from a definition of building up from existence itself. Is existence good? Yes, then more things is good. Yes, then there's such a thing as beauty because that's the harmony and complexity between things. And I think that is the, I don't know if I explained that, but that is the core definition of productivity.
Okay. So I think you're saying if you took away everything and there was nothing, then there's no productivity. And it sounds like as long as there's forward movement, there's productivity.
Forward movement, and then to what? It's more complexity and harmony in the world. Um,
What is
and
is harmony like? Are these good moral qualities, or is it just like as long as humans are reproducing, that's moving forward? Is that, or is it like
yeah,
as long as we're
so
reproducing and
yeah, so there's different levels to it, to where so like reproducing is good, but then you can do more than that. So harmony is when you have a set of things, and you can think about it like a musical note. You have, let's say you have five notes. Well, if they're five notes that don't have any relationship to each other, you play them, they are five notes, and that's what they are. But if you have five notes and they have some kind of relationship to each other where they become a chord, that's five notes and a chord. It's more things. So harmony, what I mean by harmony is when the relationship between things makes it more than the thing itself, more than just the sum of its components.
uh,
And so harmony is a scale of like, well, how harmonious is it? That's a scale. You can have really harmonious things.
yeah, I'm thinking of like why is that sound? Why is that sound an abstract thing? Like why is it not just like why is a chord and not just five notes? Is it because it sounds pleasant? Is it because
I mean, I'll give you the strict definition for it. What it is with chords and notes specifically is that there's harmonic resonance. You play a note, and when it's played on a string, it has overtones. So a note is actually many notes, and so when you play another note, it's actually resonating with that note. And another way to look at it is like this: uh, if you play a note, it's one note, and if you play a octave, that's the wavelength ratio is 1 to 2. So there's this way in which they're mathematically really aligned. If you play a fifth, that's a 2 to 3 ratio. So 2 to 3, these are very, very, their relationship is very close. And if you play a note which is like really dissonant, the wavelength ratio is like really high. So
Makes sense.
the relationship is kind of close. So you see this, yeah.
That makes sense. Um, I guess maybe if you already covered it, if you can answer it again, why does that matter?
Well, this is where I'm going to, and certainly tell me where you see the holes in this argument, but I'm going to this. I'm building out a logical structure from the very roots. So I'm saying, does anything matter? And then I'm going, if yes, no, if I'm going, if no, then, well,
Okay,
it would
that's
be,
what I
it would
misunderstood.
be, okay.
I thought I heard if you agree if there's something or nothing, not if something matters or nothing matters. Right? I think those are two different things. I think it's either like, is there physically, did you mean like physically something and nothing? Or did you just mean like if something matters or if nothing matters? Is that how you meant it?
Both. So what I'm saying, so with the if something matters, so like or if something existing matters, so you start at the base, is it better to have something existing or nothing existing? And if you go no, not better to have anything existing, then it would actually be useful to kill everybody on the planet and wipe out everything out, right? Like that's the conclusion of that. So if you
Sure.
don't go with that, then something is better than nothing. And so what I'm doing is I'm I'm putting into taking your you get to choose from axiomatic level. You pick your axiom, whichever way you go. If nothing matters, then well, work on trying to destroy the planet. If there should be nothing, and if there should be something, well then work on trying to make more of that something. So what I'm trying to do is add quality to things itself, even without the conscious interaction. So what I'm saying is that if you had a musical note existing in a space and it was not even observed, it would be some level of important just by itself.
That makes sense. Uh, if this might sound like nonsense, but is there a better starting point for your argument? Is there an even deeper? Like, can you go before something and nothing?
Yeah, you can go before logic. Um, that's the
Yeah, that's what I
only.
was thinking. It might sound like nonsense because I don't know. Maybe that's a human limit we have. Maybe it has to be something or nothing. Maybe that's the binary we have to look at. Or is there some like is that when we get into metaphysics?
Well, this. Um, now when you're talking about before something or nothing, yeah, because you're trying to ask basically, well, how foundational is this, or is this an arbitrary beginning point?
Kind of. Yeah. Like can you go like if that's that layer, can you just then go like, can you keep going and keep like the infinite regression? Is that the absolute starting point?
Um,
And it might sound like nonsense because that might
that's
be
a
the
that's
limit.
a really good question. That's a really good question. It's a really important question. Yeah, it gets to the exact heart of it.
I think that's usually what I face whenever I boil my arguments down is I just keep trying to push it and push it to the next level and then I'm like, I
Okay.
think I'm limited. I don't think I could go further.
Yeah. Well, that's really interesting. That's really interesting. I think Stephen Wolfram calls this the um irreducible something. I forget what it's called. His whole
Well,
theory is based around computational irreducibility. There it is. Um,
that's cool.
so
There was a name.
so actually, I would say this is the base level, and this is why. Because let's go right down to what is logic. Logic is the most fundamental thing that there is. Um, and the reason for that is because it's the only way we have to interact with information. So let's define logic actually as just information that exists. It has some stable existence because that's what logic is. It's information that has some kind of continuous existence. This is even before logic gates and how logic interacts with each other. It's just like we need information. We just need information first. And so this is almost pre-logic. It's at the level of existence.
I'm not too good with understanding definitions of a lot. Unlike I'm not really that great at philosophy. I struggle with it because it does
This is a,
No,
A
what?
new definition. This is a new definition. You may not understand it because I'm not explaining it well. It's
No, I
just
think I think you are explaining it well. I think I would just ask like like it's dependent on a mind, right? Like logic depends on a mind. Or are you saying that information is just existing without a mind?
I'm talking about a priori information,
Ooh, what's that?
non-mind.
Yeah, that's where
A
it like.
priori.
Well,
Yeah,
I
no,
know a priori, but what is information that's before a mind?
well, you don't need a mind to have information. Like information can exist without a mind. And so it's
Right.
just the viewing of that. No, I understand your question's deeper. I'm just hacking at it.
Oh yeah, I think you're right. Like a keyboard is a keyboard, and that's the information without anyone ever having. But I mean, like, do you see what I'm asking? Like, if there is no mind, what is it?
Yeah. Yeah. I isn't what you're asking though. If there's no mind, why does it matter? Because we determine the importance of things based off how they relate to us. Isn't that what it is, right?
Kinda, yeah, I think that's true.
And but essentially what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get importance of things beyond the mind. It is the goal of the argument to say, well, like imagine nobody exists. Would it be better if there was something or nothing? It's like why like I personally have this strong instinct. And you can answer this yourself. Like if nobody exists, would it be better if there was like some things bouncing around, no mind, or would it be better if there was nothing bouncing around, no mind? You could say
Or did
it
you ask
doesn't.
if nobody exists?
Yeah, nobody exists. All you have is like let's say a pinball machine.
Yeah, if
You have
nobody exists, then yeah, it doesn't matter.
doesn't matter. But you would say so it wouldn't matter if it existed or not.
I don't know how it would.
Not you
I
don't know how it
can't.
would matter.
I don't know how it would matter if you're saying like no human or no animal or just like anything that is an organism that doesn't exist. That's what you're saying. Like no
Yeah,
organism
no
exists.
organism exists.
Yeah, then I have a hard time understanding how anything would matter.
What about just like two very primitive organisms? Like,
Sure,
is there?
then whatever those things need to survive, those things would matter to them, I guess.
So it's local. It's relative. So okay. So now your metaphysics would be not metaphysically nihilistic.
I I don't think that's a. I'm not fully.
Yeah,
I
maybe
don't
I'm just
know
like throwing
exactly. Well, I don't know exactly what that means. If you could help me understand what that means, maybe I can answer.
like things only matter because we think they do. They don't actually matter.
That's a good question. Um, I think if the answer, I think right now, if you said no biological organism exists, then I would have a hard time understanding how anything would matter. Yes, other than like I'm trying to think. I'm really trying to think. Like the planets have to spin around each other. That matters. I don't know.
Hmm.
Maybe This is where
No,
I'm.
no,
I'm
you're
weakest in
you're
philosophy. I don't know.
you're really really strong. This it's really helpful to talk with you because um this is like kind of an argument that I find very interesting and useful, and you're really able to address the critical issue with it and
Which one? What's the issue?
well the issue you're identifying as well. If there's no conscious perspective to view it, then it doesn't matter, and you can just kind of assert that
It's.
things in and of themselves don't matter.
I don't know. I don't know how to explain how something would matter if there's nothing to have relation. Like unless you're going to say that a rock can somehow have relation, then I can't comprehend that. Maybe quantum mechanics will be able to describe that someday, but I have no idea how to do that.
So there's no world of complex beauty that matters unless there's a person, unless there's a something behind it. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, I kind of struggle with understanding how the opposite could be true.
Hmm. Okay.
Like,
I think I have to.
what's the counter to what I'm saying, so that I can maybe understand?
Well, it's like this is my feeling of it is like I'm like, okay, well, if you have a world where there's flowers everywhere, there's like now take away flowers. There's things that look like flowers because flowers are sort of they have a consciousness. You could argue that there's things that look like flowers. There's like music that's happening. There's all this beautiful stuff, and for me, it seems like that just is better than if there was nothing. It's like, well, there's at least something. There's like it's beauty in and of itself. It's things which are interacting with themselves. Things are emerging to have like you could imagine sort of primitive robotic structures that start like viewing the music and like appreciating it and like creating more and like doing this
Maybe.
stuff.
I think that's hard. That's really hard to describe because it sounds like you're kind of smuggling in your beliefs into that rather than like
Yeah.
completely eliminating
Yes.
yourself.
Yes. Oh, I absolutely am, but I didn't pretend not to. So at the start of the equation I started with, well, is it better to have nothing or something? So I started with, well, you pick the axiom. So I mean, I haven't went beyond just my feeling is that feels like something's better than nothing. And then what that does is it makes
Yeah.
yeah.
I think it's right. I think something. I think obviously because I want to continue living, I think something is going to be better than nothing. I think it has to be.
Yeah, but that doesn't seem like it's like if you want to keep on living, that means it's your life. It's not just something. It's
Oh yeah, there's lots of layers
well,
and
okay.
reasons why
Well,
I
you
want
know
to.
what?
Yeah.
You keep saying you're not good at philosophy. You're very good at philosophy. Okay, so take this example. How about this? What if there's no relationships? It's just you, just a mind, and complex, beautiful stuff.
That's a horrifying thing because then what do you reflect off of? If you're just so I can't talk to my unconscious, I can't flip. I can't talk to anything. Like I'm a social creature. So maybe, maybe if it's possible, you can start talking to inanimate objects. But if you didn't have, if you never had a relationship ever, I don't know if you'd be able to comprehend that. I
Hmm.
don't know.
You know, you
That's
know
a
what?
hard one. That's a really hard one.
I now I have an intuitive understanding which is quite different, which is basically this, which is that when I interact with music, if nobody else was around and I would just do it by myself, I would still do it because it just feels so interesting,
Where,
if that makes sense.
yeah, it does make sense. Where do you think you got that idea from?
It's just a feeling though.
Yeah,
Where so like where it came from is I mean when I listened to music, it just was so interesting to me. Like it's kind of like you. I think I teared up the first time I heard Beethoven's fourth movement of his Ninth Symphony, the Ode of Joy. It was just so be grand and spectacular. And I didn't care that nobody ever knew about my relationship with that music. To me, it mattered just for what it was. And then on piano, I just found it interesting. I used to play piano by myself. I would purposely, I didn't want anybody to hear me because I just wanted to play by myself because I just found it so interesting.
yeah. When I looked at behaviors of mine that were like this, like with video games and sports and MMA, I looked at, what pushed me towards that and how is it possible that I could have even done it? I tried to think of like, was there something that put me on this course out of my control? Like, I, does that make sense? I tried to figure out, in relation to me, because yeah, that's a hard one, man. Like, I tried to look at why is it that I wanted to fight? Why is it that I want? Why is it that I still can't figure out why it is that I tear up to music. That's just one of my obsessions. Is I can't figure out why that triggers an emotional response.
Back to irreducible computation, though, computational irreducibility, something which computes, happens, but cannot be reduced. So he proposes this idea in relation to quantum physics, for example, like you have, I don't know if you know about quantum physics, where you have sort of
Oh,
measurements that Okay, okay. I won't use that example. Um, but
I mean, I might be able to understand it if you want
now,
to try.
let me just make sure I don't lose track. I'll go back to that, but
Sorry,
let me just
sorry.
say the thing. No, it's not you. It's just I want to make sure I don't forget this. But it's so it seems like so you're saying that you analyze things, and you always want to ask why. But what I would propose though is that perhaps some things don't have an answer to it, and in asking the question, you're assuming it is a certain way that it's not. If you like, let's say you like music and you ask why, you're assuming that the question has a why in your
Yes,
presupposition.
absolutely. I
So
prefer I prefer this.
prefer
That
that it has a why.
yes, I prefer that there's this like fractal layered recursion,
Of meaning.
and I always need to explore because that's what I think psychoanalysts are talking about whenever it comes to unconscious behaviors. They're talking about repeated patterns that have been reinforced, and it doesn't matter if it's negative or positive, they've been reinforced, and so that's what you know to do to regulate. And that ties back to the Piagetian idea of the baby is just either regulated or disrupted.
It's but you're assuming that everything comes from repeated patterns?
Ooh, yeah, good question.
Let me throw in the monkey wrench before I try to trap you with something.
Yeah,
It
get me.
seems like there are certain things which are a result of our relationship with logic, for example, which are which are things that we do because of this abstract structure we call logic or math, and we'll do things because of that as well. So it's not the pattern. It's something. So like, if the conversation between Dawkins and Jordan Peterson in the extended version, he makes this argument that even if species are learning from their environment, even if they're subject to their environment, well, an environment that produced those results is still something like even the laws of physics producing an environment that does that suggests there's some kind of beauty behind the very axioms of it, which is where I'm saying logic, if we derive things from logic, that's something that we're drawing from that's not, and I would then add on to that, it's like that's something which is almost like the logos. It's like something divine that we're drawing from.
So that I don't misrepresent you, you're saying that behavior later in life doesn't come from reoccurring reinforced patterns. It comes from like something deep and ingrained and inevitable.
It comes from the structure of reality itself in some cases,
So like a
logic being the structure of reality itself.
deterministic kind of view.
Well, that they're deterministic has a specific philosophical connotation which describes the way that consciousness is, or I guess physics itself is going to be a certain way no matter what. That's not necessarily what I'm saying. So you could have, for example, a conscious being. Let's suppose that the consciousness is not deterministic, that there's some conscious element which is not deterministic, and it interfaces with logic and its past. So its interface with its past is that it keeps patterns, but its interface with logic is that it's drawing from something which is not the patterns. It's a structure of reality.
I don't think I've ever heard that before. That's why I'm struggling so hard. Sorry, I'm really trying. I don't.
Oh yeah, no,
I just think
I
it's.
haven't heard that either.
I think I'm just an idiot. I don't really know exactly how to.
I well, okay. I my feeling is if you don't find it in if you don't engage with it or find it interesting to engage with, then it's probably not interesting to you. You know,
Not like
not
that. Not like that. It is extremely interesting. It's that I don't. I'm not that familiar with the understanding of logic in this context. Remind me again the topic. We're talking about patterns of behavior that repeat, and you were saying that you don't think patterns of behavior or like it was your you were describing your love of music.
Yeah, so this is
And I
this is
asked,
what I
"Are you sure you didn't get it from something?" And you were like, "Well, I think it just is."
I'll,
What
I'll
I'm
describe
interpreting
this.
is
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
inevitable.
I'll describe this concretely. So like this. So somebody as a child, they grow up, they do certain patterns, then they discover music, and the thing that makes music interesting is these very interesting relationships between intervals. You have intervals that are 2 to 3. It creates this certain abstract mathematical structure, and then you hear that structure in relation to something else. And the understanding is not that you like it because you heard it in the past, but that you like it because of the structure itself. It's you're interfacing with something which has nothing to do with your past. It's entirely a structure which exists in a place that has nothing to do with your past. So what this what this means is that people liking music is not a result of pattern and behavior. It's a result of the music actually having some internal structure which is interesting that has no relation to the past. It just exists.
Okay, gotcha. I disagree with that because that feels like a metaphysical claim. I don't know. So I need your help understanding. It feels like you're grasping at something that isn't grounded in reality.
And that's the part where I'm claiming that logic is something a structure that exists outside of experience.
I think so.
Yeah, well, do you think numbers exist beyond experience?
Meaning like without a mind does a number exist?
Yeah.
That's where I struggle. How could it exist without a mind to have made it?
Well, if you
Like
couldn't
of
you
course
imagine.
I can count like one rock, two rock, three rock, but I had to like I know this sounds like hyper relative, but I struggle trying to understand like how one can exist without any biological organism.
I don't find it relative at all. I think find it very crucial, very well articulated. Uh, but can't you imagine a reality where you have 5 stones? That's a number of something. The things exist.
It's only a number because you made it the number. If you're not, if you don't exist as a human or any biological thing exists, it doesn't. Those aren't 5 stones. Those aren't five anything. Those aren't anything. No one is there to have a relationship with the object. There's no
Interesting.
container. There's no psychological container.
But you have these 5 objects in any conscious being who looks at it's going to say it's 5. You'd agree with that?
Yes, if they had existed for I don't know how long was it until a human was capable of counting? I don't know.
Well,
If you
okay, so
believe in evolution, however long it took that ape to become something that can count.
so you have 5 things though. You have this before conscious existence. Then conscious existence comes into being, looks at it, it's 5 things. It was 5 things all along, right? It
That's a
wasn't a part
great
of the.
question. I think that's a really great question. I don't know. I don't know if it was 5 things all along. I think that's a really good and extremely defensible, like no one can create a better model than that being 5 things. I don't know anybody that can create a better model than that being 5 things. But
That's interesting.
but I'm still convinced that it's a model that we had to create so that we could reflect the relationship we have with nature. It's
So
like
you have,
to me, it's nature telling us, like we're putting together nature or nature's making. I don't know how to explain it.
well, this is somewhat new to me too. I don't think I'm entirely unfamiliar with these ideas, but I certainly never had a conversation about this.
That's cool. Yeah, black sheep, man. That's what we do.
Yeah, it's very interesting, man.
We gestate and we get weird ideas.
I just think they're very, very profoundly interesting. This idea.
That's cool, man. What are you talking about? Which one?
But like the generally the whole discussion, just like the way,
Yeah,
yeah, everything.
yeah,
I mean, I guess right now I'm struggling to come to a response because anything I say, of course, is just a stating of the definition. I'm just then
circular.
stating, right. I'm just stating the way it is without providing the evidence for it.
Yeah, that's what I really. That's why. That's another reason why I like debates is because I want to see if people can find those limits, if they can articulate. Like if I were to do a debate, I would absolutely bring up, well, these are the well-known human limits, and I think that's where we have to go. Is can my brain even comprehend this? And I think that's what we talk about, and whenever, or not we, but I think that's what people talk about in theism whenever it's the claim is you cannot come to know God. It's because of this idea. It's just this human limit.
Hmm.
I see that as a metaphor.
Man, this has given me a lot to think about. It's so I find this so interesting when I go to super deep places in my models, and then I'm able to see areas where, oh, that's not necessarily you can't necessarily back that up. It's just what you think. It's so interesting.
It's hard.
Um,
It's hard for sure. Because yeah, you spend all this time, like what you're doing right now. You spend all this time learning philosophy, going back and listening to the greats, reading the greats, and then you find these gaps really quickly, and you're like, well, how do I go past this gap? I can't look at Sartre. I can't look at Plato. I can't look at anybody, and they might have already said the exact same thing.
yeah, I mean, in some cases, the even the greats like Descartes sort of, had the statement like, I think, therefore I am, which, yeah, even that doesn't necessarily hold up to scrutiny.
Yeah, that's this is some deep stuff, man. I love going to
Well,
human limits.
yeah, me too. Well, how long do you want to go?
I have as long as you need. I am whatever you need.
Well, I mean, I feel like I'd want to talk with you more later as well, so I think we can do multiple as well, but I'm also good to keep going if it's interesting to you. I don't want to you're you're so you don't have a feeling like a do you is your thinking distinctly different than Jungian shadow? Now, okay, just going back to the previous thing though, as far as going as long as I need, I mean,
I'm
I
not
don't
trying
need
to.
any,
Yeah, I'm
I
not
don't
trying to
need
put any
any.
limit on you. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just saying like I'm good with kind of whatever, really.
Yeah, man. I like flow. Feels like we're in a little bit of a flow.
Cool. Well, okay. Now, the Jungian shadow
Yeah, that was a good
perspective,
topic.
it yeah. You mean the one we were just on?
Well, the moment we were just on, but I think you brought it up in the PA quad one day.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, that's what you're saying. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, because you don't identify with you kind of on a deep level you go, well, I don't necessarily want to identify with these things, and also you're saying, well, I am the things of the past, the sort of accumulation of the things that came before. Um,
Yes, I think we are.
versus Jung would, I feel like Jung would kind of assert more what I'm saying, which is that the archetypes, I think you could even make the case that they go beyond just stories, that there are things which are so true. So for example, the archetype of the father is basically the archetype of, or the archetype of the mother is the archetype of that which gives birth to something. It's something which, like, you think about it like on a basic, like, informational level, something which copies or duplicates to something. You know what I mean? Like there's a way which you can go back to the structure of logic itself, to where you can say, well, maybe these things are true not just because of our human past, but because of some divine structure.
So I don't want to change the topic, but like I said, I'm blunt. Sorry. What exactly was the question there, so that I can respond?
It's just a series of things, sort of uh comparing the Jungian shadow in the way it relates to structure as is, a priori structure, and your model of reality.
Can I maybe can I describe how I understand the shadow?
Sure.
Maybe I have a bad understanding of the shadow. I think of it like everything you stopped yourself or are stopping yourself from doing. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but this is where I feel like it's a larger idea than that, because an archetype is, it's like something you're stopping yourself from doing, but the motivation behind that is bigger than just like, what is it you're stopping yourself from doing? I think that maybe is true. I think maybe that's maybe a correct definition, but I'm just saying, well, then what is it, the thing you're stopping yourself from doing? Is it like a divine structure? Is it the archetype of the hero who conquers? Which is like, it's not really you, it's like bigger than you.
I think an archetype, well, whenever I think of Jung's archetypes, I think of his connection to storytelling, and he probably saw a lot of patients, and so he probably saw a lot of patterns, and so he has this understanding of storytelling, and then he has this psychoanalytic background. So he it's probably very easy during that time to put people in baskets. So I like exploring Jungian archetypes, but I don't understand them as being very useful outside of narrative exploration. I think they can be useful if you apply them to people, but then I think they miss the complexity. Like I'm probably an archetype, I'm probably 10 archetypes, but it depends on the environment that I'm in. If I'm in a chair talking to a psychoanalyst, I could be this archetype because I could be shy or whatever. I'm afraid to talk about something, and that would be completely different if I was in, an octagon. I think it's really hard to look at archetypes. So I guess that's what I'm struggling with because I like to write stories and I think of archetypes constantly, and I love what Jung has to offer in that dimension.
It sounds like you're saying archetypes are relative to individuals, not bigger than the individual.
Yeah, I think they are bigger. I see what you're saying. I think they are bigger than the individual. They're meta patterns of human behavior. That's what I mean. That's what they are, right?
Right.
Like they're
Yeah.
this.
Oh yeah.
There's a group of there's a person that's unique in their own way, but they definitely do this pattern of behavior. And then there's like 9,000 other people that typically do the same kind of thing, and then this forms the archetype.
And then I'm imagining you would say that grounds out in the human condition, which is relative to itself in a way, versus grounding out in reality, where I would want to propose that the structure of logic itself, which means just sort of something which is beyond any possible universe, is affecting the archetype structure.
That's
But
where
I'm
you lose
missing,
me. That's where
right?
you lose me. I don't know how that. I don't know. I don't understand how that connects because it sounds like you're connecting. To me, it sounds like you're connecting emotion and logic, and I think they deserve their own spaces.
Well,
I don't think they ever merge.
let
That's what
me,
Jung would say too, is that these belong here.
what if we imagine that very primitive logical structures result in definitive laws? So, for example, maybe Kant's imperative that, like this. So, if we imagine that across any world, any possible world, there are objects. If there are objects, then objects have relationships to each other. If there are groups of objects which identify with each other, then those groups of objects would be sort of at the best interest to at least be good to their own group as opposed to the other group. And this couldn't we arrive at this conclusion from only looking at objects' well-being, like let's say they're competing in an environment next to each other? Like, aren't we deriving rules about what they prefer based off of a priori reasoning? You have data, you have just bytes of data. You have these 5 bytes of data, these 5 bytes of data. These bytes of data, you say, well, just arbitrarily, they are related to each other, so that their existence is more tied to each other. Therefore, they would be at the best interest of themselves to help themselves versus these ones. It seems like what we're deriving from here is some arbitrary conclusions, but because of the structure of logic, we get certain things.
I think, tell me if I'm talking past you, but I think this is where more Jung comes in, and I agree with Jung in that maybe it's Jung, maybe it's the guy that did System 1 and System 2, but I'm convinced that, emotions rise first and then logic happens second. So I
Okay.
can't think of, I'm struggling understanding as logic first. Like I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
have
yeah.
that model set. I have, you know, stimulus happen, reaction, and then I think. Like the prefrontal cortex developed last. That's the thing that makes us have logic.
Yeah. But, okay, is logic something which is true? And if it's something that's true, then it's coming from someplace beyond our experience. If it's something which is true by itself, then where is it coming from?
I don't think you realize how big that question is because you're going to have to figure out and tell people what truth is. What is truth?
Well, let's define it from within logic. And I've been deep into this. I do have some appreciation for how defining logic itself can actually be not as straightforward as you'd think. But let's say truth is I'm defining truth as something which exists across time. This is where I'm going to, because if you define a rule, you define a rule where if A then B, then if A, then you have B. You have the rule is if A then B, you have A, therefore you have B. What we have here is a set of rules that exists across time. Truth is consistency. It's almost like saying, is it possible that things can exist across time? Is it possible that something can exist? That's what I feel like the question of what logic is.
That's a hard one, dude. That made me think of like 10 other things, but I can't think of how to respond to that. That
That's
made
reasonable. I mean, the goal of this, I will say, is to trap anybody who is saying logic isn't real. That's what I'm trying to do.
I
Is
think
saying logic isn't a priori reality.
I think logic is, what is it? Post AORI? The thing after.
A posteriori? No,
Yeah.
it's a posteriori is things which we see from. Oh, you're saying it is.
I
You're
think
saying it's
logic
things we see from.
I think logic's after. It's you don't have very good emotional responses until, you hit certain milestones. I don't think 0 to 3, maybe 4, maybe 5 is when you can start abstracting a bit deeper and you start showing more emotions. But once you hit this stage, um, you can start using logic.
Okay, interesting. So then follow-up question. Is is logic a in complete construction of people's imagination? And if it is there a possible world where we don't have logic? Where you have conscious beings that don't have logic?
Yeah, I don't think there's a possible world where conscious beings don't have. Well, I mean, yeah, sure, there is a possible world where conscious beings don't have logic. Just think about if you believe that evolution is real. There were fish. Did they have logic?
Oh, I mean, like, Turing, or I mean like really smart, able to think abstractly.
Yeah, I don't know how to answer that because as far as we understand, the prefrontal cortex is the last thing to develop in the human brain that gave us logic. And we have the things closest to the spinal cord that gave us, emotional response, stimulus response. Because that's the first thing to have shown up.
Now, you couldn't though imagine a conscious system
Um,
of
but that makes me, I understand. I think I'm starting to understand a little bit what you're saying. Like there was a need for that part of our brain to develop. So you could argue that because logic was always existing, that's why the animal developed this part of the brain.
yeah. I'm
I
saying
can
it's
see, I
it's
can
a
see that.
it's a reflection of reality itself on the prefrontal cortex. But
I can see that.
the other thing is though, you couldn't possibly describe a reality where you have conscious beings which are intelligent that don't have logic.
You're right. And I think that's like what we were talking about earlier. It's a human limit. It's like asking a question that there's no answer to because it's like asking, is God real? How do you answer that
It's a
question?
human limit.
It's a
Okay,
human
but
a
it's
constraint.
possible. It's possible for logic not to exist though, what you're saying.
Sure. Uh, I hear what you're saying. I think that's a new thing I've never heard before, and you kind of helped me formulate my own argument against myself, and that the prefrontal cortex is developed because logic has always existed.
That that is what I would claim, yeah.
That sounds like a fair argument. I think, yeah, I wonder how you would strengthen that.
How you'd
Because,
make it a matter of fact as opposed to sort of a guess.
yeah, because still need relation to make anything matter. Like you said, if you're just in a vacuum, would anything matter? I would have a hard time figuring out how anything would matter if it was just you and no one else ever, and you had no idea of how to make relation.
Oh, are you going back to the original thing now? Starting from the are you now going back to the original thing, starting with logic as an axiom? Going, okay,
I think so.
if we have logic, then how do we get any meaning from something?
Yeah, I think we're at the limit, dude. I don't know how to answer this. I don't know. I don't know. There's no way to know. Like it's the
Wait, what are
observer
your
can observe themselves kind of stuff. I don't know, man.
well, okay, so what, yeah. Do you still feel the same way about logic where it's like it's could possibly not exist, just it's a figment of our imagination, or do you think it's something that's a absolute structure of reality? I think you would have heard that James Orr would have suggested that it's even before God is logic. And I know some Christians will say God created logic.
Yeah, I don't know if I've explored philosophy this deep. I'm on the I don't think I fully align, but the thing that's coming to my mind right now is like Ayn Rand's rational egoism. That's what I'm kind of thinking of. But that
Oh, what
doesn't
is that?
but that doesn't explain logic. I think it Ayn Rand's thing is like we are biological organisms that just move towards what we need to move towards. I think that's kind of the gist of it, and it has nothing to do with any metaphysical. It's like a really strict evolutionary biology kind of take.
Yeah, well, it's fair within evolutionary biology.
So I don't know how. Yeah, like that's why I said like metaphysics gets annoying is because I just don't even know how to abstract that deep.
Oh, right. It's like you don't even have tools or axioms to work with at that level. Yeah. I think that's what most philosophers say, though.
Yeah, so that's why I struggle with it because I'm like, why would I even go there if I know that's my human limit. But I understand the need. I think we need metaphysics. But
Yeah,
I
it's
think
just interesting you say human limit, though, because, yeah.
I think it's a human limit. I struggle with it. I struggle with theology and all that other stuff, and I like to explore and think about it all the time.
I feel like you want to do a debate because you do have the mind for a debate. You're able to really deconstruct arguments in a effective way. It's
Go ahead.
yeah, it's interesting. Now it seems like your perspective of reality is derived from philosophy and metaphysics, even if you don't sort of prefer them, but you do have perspectives about. So like, I'll give an example. So you're saying like, well, is logic true or is it not true? Well, you can ask that, but well, it could be true. It could be true. From your metaphysics, you can't prove that it's not true. So it could be the case that all these the prefrontal cortex developed as a result of something which is absolutely true. We can't prove it, but just the fact that we can't prove it doesn't mean it's not true.
Yeah, it's hard because yeah, the proof thing is a lot of I like proof, and so if something can't be proven, then I have to immediately be like, well, man, maybe we don't know, or maybe it's a human limit. Maybe we will. Like, I still have this faith that we will get there. Like, that's the metaphysical thing I think I have. I have faith that, if we can think of it, we'll probably reach it. That's where
Interesting.
I think that's where my faith is, because
That's cool.
we always seem to do that. I don't know how else to explain it. Like, if I can end your life faster, I'm gonna make something in your life faster. Like, we just always do that. It's just this weird thing that we do, and I don't know how to. And maybe that ties into your claim that like there's always this forever logic, and we're just slow. We're just
Uh-huh.
catching up to it. We're chasing it.
That's so interesting. So you go to the what we can prove. Yeah, you go to right down to what we can prove, and then you go, well, we don't know from that. You actually say it because I think some people will go, yeah, we can't prove it, but it's like still we kind of know it's like we're still going to build from it. Now, I'll provide a better argument, which is pragmatic, which is this: it's like, okay, well, if logic is not real, that means that all of our conceptualizations and all of that is garbage. So like, let's imagine a reality where we're trying to figure out if God is just trying to mess with us. So we go, this
You
is
already
like
packed
a
in God, so I'm lost.
okay, but
I'll accept that God exists in this experiment.
we're trying to figure out if it's possible that there's a demiurge which is trying to hurt us. If it's possible.
Sure,
And then
why not?
and then we go, okay, well, if logic is true, let's say logic proves certain things like like there's a certain necessity for love because why would you hurt something because you're destroying it. If we define all of evil as destroying things and then love as making things, you'd go, well, why would God destroy things? Because there's no benefit. You can go, okay, well then why would he hurt us? Because that's just destroying. If you define these certain axioms, then you get to a point where you go, okay, well, I've proved something with a priori logic, but I don't know if logic is real. But then let's look at this is what I'm building to. This is the critical bit. Let's get to, is logic real? Well, is logic real or is it not real? If logic is not real, there's absolutely nothing we can do. So imagine like all of your thoughts about things, they're not real because logic isn't real. It's just fake. What does that mean? That means that there's absolutely nothing you can do to prove anything. You say, well, I just examine empirical evidence, but that's a logical. You're using logic to say that's something. You're saying that's something. Logic. If you have no logic, you have absolutely no proof of anything. So then you get to the point of it's like, well, even if logic is fake, there's nothing you can do with that axiom. It blows the whole system out. So you have to start with the axiom of logic is true. Otherwise, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah, I think it would be hard to say logic isn't real as a logical being, for one. And man, I had a thought and I lost it. That was a good one. Yeah, it's really hard I think it's just really hard to conceive logic as not real while also using words. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Right.
But then you have to understand which this is why I like philosophy so much, because I think it's the synthesis of many lenses, but I think it's weak and that it doesn't it doesn't use some of these arguments don't use all lenses because that would be nonsense to use all lenses. So why aren't we using a biological lens to describe how logic happens? Why are we going to some cosmic solution that logic exists outside of us? Why aren't we just saying, oh, well, the environment demanded it, so the brain formed it so that it could survive longer, so that it could reproduce more? Like, why are we jumping to, well, therefore it must have always existed? Like, why do we make that leap?
Well, I think a part of that's because we can't even think of a model where that isn't the case.
What do you mean?
Well, we can't think of a model where where logic wasn't real and we constructed it.
Oh no, I just mean like as far as going beyond um, that thing with the our brain developed because logic was always there. Like that sounds like a metaphysical claim to me. The logic was always there. Like, why did we make that leap? Why not just stop at the brain developed this so that it could survive more or
Well,
better,
but
more
that's
efficiently?
what I'm saying though is like your alternative hypothesis is one that we can't explain a model of. So
I
like
guess, yeah, I don't know what that means.
if you go, okay, well, the brain was the one that developed logic. Logic didn't exist before the brain. Then you then try to describe the world outside of it. You describe a world where there's no consciousness and there's objects. You go, well, even though consciousness doesn't exist, there's still a number of objects.
Well, I think that's smuggling. You're. I think that's cheating because, like, if you're gonna say eliminate consciousness, that means eliminate everything you absolutely have ever known ever. Every mimetic, every mimetic thing that has ever existed, eliminated, and then try to describe something. I think that's a human limit that's impossible to do.
So this is a deeply um, consciousness first perspective. Consciousness is the source of reality. Now, no, you're not making the hard claim that that's the case, just that you can't prove it, right? You're not saying that, well, logic certainly doesn't exist. You're just saying, well, we can't prove that logic certainly exists, right?
Yeah, I have no clue, but my standards are that. My standards are that. Yeah. But I'm going to be open and being I can be convinced.
I just don't even understand how you can I don't understand how you can make that argument because we can imagine a world without a conscious being. We imagine it and logic exists in that world.
But how can you do that? Because that's, I think, presupposing. I think that's the right word. You're basically smuggling in everything you know and pretending as if that doesn't exist at the same time, and that sounds like a contradiction to me. You're saying, what if no mind exists, but everything that the has come up with still exists? That's what I
Now
mean.
you're Yeah, but now you're saying everything is is a figment of our imagination. Or you're saying at least we can't prove it's not. But if we have
Maybe,
if we
maybe, yeah.
this is interesting.
How can we
I
prove
mean
that five rocks is five rocks if no one has ever existed to even think that five rocks is five rocks?
yeah, because we're circling this where we're both just sort of defining it differently, where I'm saying, well, if it is five rocks, then it's five rocks whenever, and you're saying, well, if we can't observe it, then it's not.
There's this really interesting thing. This is going to be tangential. Sorry. There's this interesting thing I found in mimetics. I was exploring, and I think it was like there's extinct things in genetics, and I was like, okay, well, is there extinct things in mimetics? And we can't. How could there possibly be an extinct meme if I can't think of it, right? Like memes exist. Any idea that has ever existed will always exist as long as you can think of it. But if something is extinct, that means if it's in the realm of memetics, that means that you can't possibly think of it. So an idea that dies or a language that dies, is that like an extinct meme? I don't know why that came to my mind, dude, but this
Yeah,
is
well,
reminding me of that.
that's very much relates to that. If a tree falls in the forest doesn't make a sound, you would say emphatically no, or at least we don't know.
No, I think it would make a sound. I think a tree would make a sound. I think that it subjectively would make a sound. Why not? Is
It
there
would make.
atmosphere? Like, are all the conditions met so that sound could be produced?
But if there's a history where something happened, that did still happen.
I think what I'm hearing with the mind thing and the consciousness thing is that you're taking the environment and the conditions that are required to label something and have a relationship with an object, and you're completely eliminating it. And so that's where I struggle with logic existing outside of that, because the conditions for logic to exist are my skull and my prefrontal cortex and whatever else is in relationship that I don't understand.
To
And
clarify again, though, you're saying the conditions for logic to exist are da da da. You mean for me to, like, you can't prove that those are not just the conditions for logic to exist, right? You're not saying that logic certainly only exists in your mind. You're saying that you can't prove that it doesn't just sort of exist in your mind, right? Because isn't it possible that logic is beyond that and we just haven't conceptualized it? Like, of course, right?
yes, that's where my faith is. I think my faith is that we don't know, but it's possible. But I'm also at the point where I have to use my available knowledge so that I can navigate through life. And I can't live in fantasy land chasing, like I
Yeah.
can't. I have to live in reality. And my reality right now is that I don't know. And so I can think about it, but that's as far as I can go.
I'm like really wanting to understand how you're coming to that conclusion of things not existing because, well, okay, this, like, from, oh, I feel like this is what it is. I feel like you're smuggling in a inability to prove something later in the stage. So people look and examine things, they count things, right? Now, if logic is true across time, then what we've counted is actually true. If it's not true across time, then it's not true. Now, we can't prove that it is true across time, but if it's not true across time, then that means even now we can't count things. If we can count things now, we can count things in any time period because uh, it's very abstract information. This is meant. I don't know if you're understanding though, because this is meant to be a disproof of what you're saying about things only existing in the mind. Because what I'm saying is like this: it's like if reality. Did you understand that?
Yeah, I think, let me tell you what I think I'm hearing. I think I'm hearing you say that if no mind, no conscious being exists, then like math is true.
But I'm proving it though, like this way though. I'm saying this. It's like, okay, if we count five things, so there's two possible things. You're accepting there's two possible realities. If we count five things, it's possible that that's true across all. Like it's truer than our mind. It's possible that it's very true, or it's possible it's a figment of our imagination, right? Those two things are possible, right?
Yes.
If it's only a figment of our imagination, then that implies that absolutely everything that we are doing is arbitrary. We count five things, we say it's five, it's not necessarily five. It doesn't suddenly become valuable just because we're conscious.
I think it just hit me what I think is happening. I like to live in ambiguity. I
Well,
accept
I do.
both. I accept that it both can be true right now.
Well, I'm the same way. I accept both can be true. I just don't like I've been in that position where I've accepted that even logic isn't true. And that's a position I can accept, but I think it just has to be like I can't prove logic is true. I just don't know how I've moved the location. I just don't know how you can say logic is false and simultaneously say that because it's true for us, it means something. Do you know what I mean? Like if logic is false, then there's no way that even like us counting things is actually a thing. So I go out and count something. If logic is not true across all times, how is me counting it? And I'm very okay with ambiguity. I just don't understand.
Yeah, I'm not saying you're not. I meant it more like this is what I think I was speaking to with philosophy having like the synthesis of lenses, and then you have the sciences which have their own lens, and you could probably look into many fields and they probably have an answer to this question, and then hopefully philosophy would look at, I don't know if this happens, but maybe philosophy looks at what all of the fields are saying scientifically and then converging on, something maybe like what you're concluding. So I'm stuck between thinking of it psychologically, biologically. I'm stuck thinking between all these lenses, so I can't land on which one is more right because I can't zoom out and look at the meta narrative right now. I would have to be in every field ever and understand that. Does that make sense? I
Yeah.
my standard of this type of conversation is, can you be an expert in all fields? Maybe that's too high.
Well, but no, maybe you've lost interest in the discussion though, because I thought I presented a proof that showed that logic is true and you don't have to have anything other than a raw philosophical perspective. You can do armchair philosophy and come to that conclusion, basically, practically.
I think
Because
logic
so
is true. Yeah. But you hear me contradicting myself?
no, but so like what you described is like you said that you said, well, the fields are an amalgamation of all fields. It's like the best thing abstracted out from all fields. That's what you said that philosophy is. And that completely
Or I would
discounts
hope.
Plato's idea of forms, right?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that. Help me out.
Plato's idea of forms. So you have eternal objects that exist um, beyond time and space, and then there's instantiations of them. So there's the form of the dog, and then there's the actual dog. So the form of the dog is eternal and beyond any human conception. It just exists. And this is Plato's way of viewing it. And so what I'm saying is, if philosophy is only the Aristotelian perspective, which is just the properties of matter itself, then that's what you're saying. It's just an abstraction. It's just
Maybe that's part of my storytelling bias. Maybe. Maybe I just don't know enough to have a
but
solution. I have an
I,
answer.
I don't want to I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I am interested in this like one last. I won't go any further, but this one last thing, which is like, okay, if logic isn't true, then doesn't that imply, if it's not true across all time and space, and it's just a figment of our imagination, doesn't that then imply that when we count something, it's not real? So if I count five objects and I tell you it's five, you should then conclude it may be four. There's like, it's not real, right?
No, I don't think that. I don't think that. I don't. Yeah, I guess I don't understand what you mean by not real. You mean like it's not physically there? Like I understand real as like this mouse is really here. Like, what do you mean by real?
Is um s- real like information that you would accept as true. You go, oh, that's true.
Physical or like that's? I think that's where I'm.
Physical, sure, physical, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
I'll
not
accept.
physically real.
Yeah, I would accept that five rocks is physically real. Did I get lost?
No, man, you're really good. You're really good. You have a very, very deep philosophical, epistemological way of approaching stuff.
I don't know how to. I don't know how to answer that. I don't think logic goes beyond. reality. Maybe that's where I'm at.
Yeah, yeah,
Logic
yeah.
doesn't go
Now,
beyond
do
what we can
you
physically handle. Maybe that's
do you,
Aristotelian.
do you like understand the argument that things can go beyond reality and then kind of just really just from deep epistemology reject it, or is it that you have never ever even conceptualized that things can be beyond our reality?
That's a good question. Maybe if you could offer, a question that would force me to think that way, maybe I could understand if I have ever done that before. Because I haven't formally gone to church. I haven't done metaphysical philosophy thinking. So maybe I have in a different way. Is there something you can do to trigger that? Maybe.
Trigger the feeling of objects existing beyond time. So you've never thought that that forms exist beyond. You've never thought that math was an like just a truer than anything. That's what you're saying.
You mean like 2 plus 2 could mean 5? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm saying like you've never thought it was possible that like because you were using the strong epistemological position. You were saying, well, I don't know which it is, if it's logic is true or not. That's what you're saying, right? Could
As in
you
as in true. I'm saying I don't know if it's true beyond a mind.
you don't know if it's true beyond the mind, but have you ever like kind of put yourself in the head of somebody who does think that it's true beyond mind, where you've like conceptualized, oh, I see how it could be possible that math is true beyond mind, or
Yeah, you've helped me, especially with that, the way I did the prefrontal cortex thing. That helped a lot. But I can't abstract so much into this cosmic level. That's where I struggle. I think this is reaching into a cosmic metaphysical level of understanding logic. I think logic is based in reality, and I mean like physical reality.
physical reality. Yeah. Super interesting, man. I want to read Immanuel Kant's Critique on Pure Reason because I feel like he says the same thing you do. That's my feeling. I don't know, but I feel like he does. So I want to do some more research and get back to you because I feel like I can show that it's real.
Yeah, I tell,
Yeah,
and I mean I don't know why. Why is it important that it's real? What's motivating you to prove that it's real?
because well, I'll tell you exactly why. Because then you can build absolute morality on that.
Uh
So
oh.
like,
Uh
in
oh. That's a big one.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, but in the debate that we had where I was arguing against absolute morality, I think that the arguments deconstruct morality to a point where it's subjective unless you can invoke logic. And from logic alone being real, you can do a lot of things with morality, which is why I think it's useful. And so like it's getting back to the beginning, why we even got into it was like that way you can show that uh, just existence itself maybe is valuable if you have any a priori versus no a priori. It just sounds like your argument is no a priori, and I'm saying a priori.
I think I think that's what I'm saying. As far as like human beings as animals, I can't comprehend logic being a priori. If you consider like system one, system two thinking. But I also
Mm,
understand the argument that maybe it has always been there. But that's a metaphysical claim to me that it has always been there.
right.
So yeah, like I said, I struggle with metaphysics. It's just kind of a like a tick on me that I like have to accept is on me.
I don't think it is. I mean,
I mean that in a
they're
good
very
way. Sorry.
yeah. Okay.
I use grotesque language. I mean that like the whenever you get the bug, like an obsession.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I mean.
I like the way you do metaphysics. It's very cool. I like when I can go right down to the very core most metaphysical things.
That's Yeah, that's all I want to do at this point. Whenever it comes to like philosophy, like I'm tired
Yeah,
of noise, and I just want to go like, where's the limit? What can we
yeah,
not
yeah,
talk
yeah.
about?
It's the
Because
best. It's
it's 2026 now. Like, I don't know what else to do, man. It's like the TikTok. Bring it back to the TikTok thing. We got to figure out how to shove in as much information as possible. We got to get you to learn all of philosophy faster, so that you can get out there and have deeper conversations.
yeah, brilliant, man. I really enjoyed this discussion. I'm gonna end it now because I feel like, well, honestly, part of it's the length of the video. Hopefully, more people will watch it if it's a bit shorter. But yeah.